Hey,
Hey
hey.
y'all, this is your host Brandy with Bold Conversations with B. Thank you for joining us today. We are so glad that you're here. As you can see, I have my special guest, but before I introduce her, I want to shout out three people, which one is my sponsor, that is B Anderson Collection. They want you to live your life in color. You can find any bold, bright lipstick at Brandy with an ID Anderson SON.com. All of the lipsticks are $10. Also, I want to shout out Akia Hill, a couple of women that make sure that I am looking good and looking right and tight. Kia Hill, she is the owner of Hair from Scratch. I do not have on my hair today, but typically I would have a piece on. But she is a custom wig maker out in DeSoto, Texas, and she is always making sure that my hair is looking pretty dope. Also, I want to shout out Gracie Escananzo. She is the owner of Gracie Nail Artistry. She's located in South Fort Worth, and she is always making sure my hands look right. And my birthday is this Friday, so she makes sure my hands look really, really pretty. So, just wanted to shout them out, get that all out of the way. So, let me bring on my special guest. It is Darina.
Daria. Yeah.
Daria. I had to practice this and I don't mind being corrected. So if I say it wrong again, please make sure you correct me because I want to make sure I get it right. Thank you so much for joining us today. I want to just talk about this bold woman real quick because she is so fierce. And the reason why I say that is because I remember when I spoke with her before she agreed to be on the show. And I was sitting in my car. It was the Texas Rangers game. They weren't in the World Series yet. And I was getting ready to meet my cousin and her boyfriend for dinner. And I'm sitting on the phone. And this woman was very courageous about her background, but also she was very courageous to let me know about her faith. And she made it very clear. She was like, listen, if you want to talk about Jesus, baby, it's a no for me. So, and I appreciate that. So thank you so much. And so that goes into this bold conversation. So to kick us off, I just want you to tell and speak to our audience and tell us who you are, who's your family, who your people.
My people. Okay. Well, first of all, happy early birthday to
Thank
you. And so, as my bio states, I am a daughter. First of all, before I'm a wife, before I'm a mama, I'm a daughter of the Most High King. So, like you said, if we want to talk about Jesus, let's do that all day. Okay. So, I'm a daughter of the Most High King. I am a wife. I'm a mother. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I'm a friend. I homeschool my kids, like use that term loosely. We do K-12. It's an online public school.
Yeah.
Um, but I recently published a journal. My heart beats for family. So it's all about, you see that lineage and legacy right
Yeah.
behind you. So it's all about passing generational knowledge. So like for faith stories, I think we talked a little bit about that. Like
Yeah. Go ahead. Go in.
our families have faith stories. Okay.
Yeah.
So for example, this is not the bio no more. Brandy, we off on the tangent already.
Yeah. Yeah.
We
Yeah. Yeah.
starting on the
Yeah.
tangent. Okay. So my grandfather had a massive heart attack.
Mm,
Massive. Should have killed him. Okay. Right on his front lawn. My grandmother was there with him and she
yeah.
said to him, Warren, that was his name. Warren, why don't you ask Jesus to have mercy on you?
Mm.
He asked the Lord to have mercy on him. He didn't die. As a matter of fact, he lived 7 years after the time they said that he would live. So
Wow.
for my family, as I shared with you before before
Yeah.
we came on, my son is in the hospital right now. But
Yeah.
the thing is, if I wasn't able to look back, and that's just one of many instances, if I
Yeah.
wasn't able to look back and say, okay, so my family called on his name, my family's faith was this, that, or the other, like
Yeah.
you can read stories in the Bible, but that feels so far away. But when
Oh my
you can
God.
reach back to mama and papa, or you can reach back to your mom and your daddy, or in your own life and see
Yeah.
what he's done for you, then
Yeah.
that solidifies you in your
Yeah.
faith.
Yeah. So I want you to, man, and thank you so much for sharing that. Because I know it means a lot to you. And for those of you who you did not hear her misspeak, she did let me know right before this. But I didn't know that. I didn't know the child was in the hospital, but she did let me know. So we did say a prayer for her son and her family. So for those of you who are believers, send a prayer up for the family. But so why marriage therapy?
Hmm. Well, for me,
Yeah.
marriage marriage is like the building block for society, right? So I'm hearing some feedback. I'm not sure if everybody else is hearing it, but it sounds like something's going on with somebody's mic. Can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear you. Okay.
Okay. All right. So marriage is the building block for society. So when we look at a lot of things we see on a big scale that we're complaining about, oh, the crime is this, or the, this, that, or the other is going on in different neighborhoods. If we get down to like the microscopic level of that, this is my view. If we can begin to have healthy marriages and healthy families, then we begin to have healthy neighborhoods and healthy communities and healthy cities, right? So of course it's not a penicillin pill. It's not like, oh, hey, for all the problems, let's just go ahead and fix the
Yeah.
marriages or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's a big part of it, right? So if we
Yeah.
have healthy marriages, chances are we'll produce healthy children. And when I'm saying healthy, I mean emotionally, spiritually, relationally. So for a lot of us, who grew up in families where maybe our parents weren't still together anymore, we can look back and we can see, okay, so mama did the best she could, daddy
Yeah.
did the best he could, grandma,
Yeah.
whoever raised you, did the best they could. But
Yeah.
if we can do things differently,
Yeah.
then let's do them differently.
So
So for me,
what is a healthy marriage?
well, first of all, a healthy marriage has two healthy people in it, right?
Okay.
So a marriage is only going to be as healthy as the people who are in it. So if one of us is healthy and the other one of us is toxic, guess what?
Yeah.
Our marriage is toxic,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So healthy is depending on how you define it, is gonna we're gonna look at areas of communication. That's number one.
Yeah.
If we can't communicate, then we can't do anything well, right?
Yeah.
Vulnerability.
Mm.
But vulnerability is only going to come in a safe space. So can I trust you?
Mm.
I'm not going to be vulnerable with somebody that I don't know how they coming. Like if I'm like bearing my heart to you,
Yeah.
and I don't know today if you're going to be okay with it, or or the next time I do this, you're going to be like, oh, well, blah blah blah. Okay, so you don't get that part of me. So being able to be vulnerable, being able to communicate, being
Yeah.
able to trust each other, and long term commitment.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go through seasons in
Yeah.
marriages. I told you when we spoke the first time, I got married
Yeah.
at 19 years old, Brandy. I was a
Yeah.
baby. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know who I was.
Yeah.
And my husband is older than me. He was 31, I was 19. But
Mm.
even as a man of 31 years old, he didn't
Yeah.
know who he was either.
Yeah.
So just understanding that we're gonna go through different seasons. So who I
Yeah.
married is not who my husband is today. Who he
Yeah.
married is not who I am today. But
Absolutely.
are we down to go through the seasons?
Yeah. So let's break that down. So you said communication. It was
That's number one. Yeah.
communication. The last one, I didn't get the middle one. So the other one was commitment or
So we
long
had trust and vulnerability.
trust and vulnerability. So break those down. Let's start with communication.
Okay. So first of all, it's a two-way street. So if I'm doing all the talking, we are not communicating.
Yeah.
Okay. But at the same time, there's such a thing called active listening. If I'm talking and you are like you on your phone,
Jazz, I'm about to throw the
listen,
whole computer.
listen. If I'm talking and you on your phone, we're still not communicating. You can tell
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
uh-huh,
Yeah.
I heard you. We're not communicating.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the communication is so big, Brandy, because there's so many different components to it. So first of all, we have to be able to speak it. We have to be able to express, give language to the thing
Yeah.
that we want to talk about. There
Yeah.
has to be a person who's receiving the information. There's processing the information. But then at the same time, and this is something that I had to learn that was really huge, was
Okay.
timing is very important.
Ooh, girl,
So
talk about that.
when my husband first comes home from work, if there's something that's going on and I want to talk about it, I can't hit him with that as
Oh,
soon as he
girl.
walks in the door. So he walks in the door, hey y'all, I'm home. Let me tell you about this. He don't want to hear that.
Yeah. 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 You better tell these people.
And even if he did decide, you know what, let me just listen to her,
Yeah.
chances are it won't end as well as if
Yeah.
I had given him time to decompress, and like be in a better state, a more
Yeah.
relaxed state to be able to
Yeah.
receive what I'm saying and be
Yeah.
able to think about a solution to it.
Do you ever find that people people you know marriages, husband and wife, have to have like code words or something to um ask for, not permission, but to say like, do you have the capacity for X? Because even though it's timing, it's still maybe not today.
Hmm. Yeah.
So have you ever come across where you had to counsel through a marriage where people had to have these type of code words, and what did that look like?
So when the work that my husband and I do with couples, our
Hmm.
code words are not usually, excuse me, are not usually used for timing of communication. Is usually more for conflict. But in terms of communication, I say
Okay.
if you need a code word, then come up with a code word.
Yeah.
But otherwise, like when when you're in a relationship with somebody, never stop learning. you know
Yeah.
study that person, and you'll get to a point where you realize, okay, you know what, he looks like his plate's a little full. If it can wait, then wait for a different time. Some
Mm.
things can't wait though. And so if it's something that simply can't wait, then maybe give him a couple minutes to decompress, or if it's
Yeah.
you, let him let him know, hey, just give me 5 minutes,
Yeah.
let me go breathe, whatever.
Yeah.
And then, if it's something that's pressing like that, okay, then let's get down to it. But I mean, if you need a code word, get a code word.
So what about if you don't know if your person is, like they're in this space where it's unknown, but it's known, like, hey, I just, I
I
need a
can't.
minute.
like
Yeah.
like I can't right now. Okay, so I'll tell you what, I don't let me not like read what you're saying. Give me an
Yeah.
example. Let's work through it.
Um,
Give me a for instance.
so the husband walks in the door, you're maybe excited about something, and you're
Hmm.
like, oh my gosh, I got to tell you all this stuff. But he's like, give me a minute. Like,
Hmm.
or I'm supposed to recognize the cue of that they need a minute without it being known. Like, what are things that I need to be paying attention to in regards to my person to say like they look like they need a minute. I can't give them all this excitement right now.
If you don't know, you don't know. And
Yeah,
so that's where it comes back into having two healthy people in a relationship. So
yeah,
if there's something that he needs to
yeah,
also be able to communicate to you, just like
yeah,
you should be able to communicate to him. So if you're excited about something and
yeah,
you like, let me pounce, let me tell him because I'm excited. If he needs
yeah,
5 minutes, he should be able to tell you he needs 5 minutes. But if he
yeah,
can't, you know
yeah,
that at that case, in that case, I would just try to not get my feelings hurt if he's not as excited as I am.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So then you said the other component was trust and vulnerability. Can we
Hmm.
dig into that? What is trust? Because these are two different things. Like,
Yeah, they are.
you know what I mean? But they're I feel like that should be at the top,
Hmm.
but they're so deep. So let's
Hmm.
talk about trust. Like, what are some of the common things you said you and your husband focus on conflict resolution? So
Hmm.
what are some of the common themes that you're seeing when it comes to trust?
Baggage.
Mm,
So like we were saying, a lot of people that we work with come from homes where there weren't two parents.
yeah,
And so a lot of times, if we were or they were or you were, I'm not sure,
yeah.
in homes where mama did all of it. Mama worked, mama came home, did the homework, she
Mhm.
paid the bills, blah blah blah. Then a lot of times there's an expectation that that's the way it's going to be, right?
Mm,
Because that's what we've always seen. That's what
mhm.
husband may have always seen. So he's just
Yeah,
thinking, she got it, mama had it, you know,
yeah,
so she got it. So
yeah,
like being able to set expectation, that's one of the main things that we do in the work that we do with couples is, let's on the front end, let's set expectation for
yeah,
who's doing what. And that's
yeah,
not to say that the roles don't change, because
yeah,
eventually or over time, depending on the season you're in, the roles may change. but
yeah,
but the trust component comes into it. Like when we're going to go deep with trust, that means that at the end of the day, if we've said, I do this, is not always for boyfriend girlfriend. There is a level of
yeah,
um wisdom and discernment that you have to have when
yeah,
you're in relationship with people who you're not in covenant with, because we can be in
Yeah.
relationship with people that we're not in
Yeah.
covenant with, right?
Yeah.
But so for husbands and wives, I need to be able to trust that if I'm going through something, that I don't have to be afraid that you're just gonna be like, okay, this is too deep for me, I'm
Mm,
bouncing, right? So that's like the biggest trust issue. So I need to be able to know that you're going to be there. But just on the day-to-day basis, learning each other and learning, is this something that I feel comfortable sharing with you? Are you going to make me feel judged or feel shame if I share this with you, or if I feel this way?
but what about if they do feel judged?
Well, they may. And then again, that goes back to two healthy people, right?
Yeah.
So, and it goes back to communication, which is why communication was number one.
Okay.
So if we can't communicate, if I can't communicate to you,
Yeah.
I feel judged when you say that, or when you look
Wow.
at me this way, then the trust and the vulnerability will never be there.
So how do you overcome that?
Overcome the trust issue, or the
Yeah. The trust
well,
and the vulnerability.
first of all, let's remove the stigma that therapy and counseling or for people who are crazy. Let's remove that stigma
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as we talked a little bit before, before the show, a lot of
Yeah.
times people are hurting because there's a mask, there's the facade. There's like, oh well, I can't, I gotta look like I got this all together. No, you
Yeah.
don't. No, you don't. So,
Yeah.
in terms of being able to overcome trust issues and being able
Yeah.
to overcome vulnerabilities, if you need help with
Yeah.
that, find somebody who can help you. And
Yeah.
if it's not counseling, find a mentor. Find a couple in your
Yeah.
sphere, in your church, in your,
Yeah.
community. Even if you don't have that, there are mentor programs online that you can find for
Yeah.
marriages that can
Yeah.
help you in these same areas.
Yeah. So what
But
about when it comes to, so we're talking about trust, so communication, we're talking
mhm.
about trust. What about vulnerability? What does vulnerability mean for you in this covenant relationship?
So first of all, if I don't trust you, I'm not being vulnerable with you. Okay. If you are
Girl,
not safe,
listen.
if you're not safe, you get topical, how was your day? Good. That's the kind of answers you get, right?
Wow.
But when I trust you, I can be vulnerable. I can say, you know what, my day was okay, but I was going through this and I felt this kind of way, blah, 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 blah. But that's if I feel like you are safe, feel like if you care, if you have something to offer, or if you're a good listener, because sometimes our men want to fix it, right? And sometimes I don't need you to fix it. Sometimes I just need to let me vent,
Yeah. How do you know when?
you know. So can you see me,
Oh,
Brandy?
I
Because
can. I can. I see you got cut in and out just a little bit.
okay,
Hmm.
all right.
Hmm.
I'm sorry,
So
what were
what?
you saying?
So I know you were talking about being able to be vulnerable and talk about your day instead of just saying I'm good, it was great, it was okay, all those different things. But
Hmm.
like, have you have you come across relationships or marriages
Hmm.
um, that weren't able to be vulnerable, and how were they? How were y'all able? How were you and your husband able to help them resolve that?
So most of the work that we do are with premarital couples or
Okay.
couples within the first 3 years of
Okay.
marriage.
Okay.
So we haven't seen a whole lot of that, but the few that we have seen, in terms, it usually ties back to that baggage, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not, and sometimes we're in relationship with somebody who has given us that baggage. So like
Mm.
I'm in a relationship with you, and we kind of worked through some stuff, but you did cheat on me 3 years ago,
Yeah.
or you have caused hurt for me. And so in
Okay.
terms of overcoming vulnerability, that's only going to be overcome if the trust is established. And so
Mm.
sometimes we're with people because it's who we want to be with, or it's who we're expected to be with, or just any number of reasons. But the thing is, marriages can only work when you can be vulnerable with somebody. So if you haven't gotten to the point where you can, or you don't trust that person, get some
Yeah.
help.
Yeah.
But that help, get the help if that person is willing. Okay.
Yeah.
So it takes two very willing people, especially if the baggage has come from that person, if the
Yeah.
previous hurt has come from that person. And
Yeah.
so, we I think we're gonna slip into forgiveness a little bit,
Yeah.
but like
Yeah.
our definition as a people, our definition of forgiveness is not always healthy.
Mm,
Okay, so sometimes we feel like, okay, I forgave you, so now I got to pretend like nothing happened, and that's not the case.
yeah.
So if you are the person who has hurt me, I can forgive you, but that does not mean I have to stay with you.
Mm,
And I'm not talking marriage. I'm talking like we're
yeah.
entering into marriage, or we're still, going into
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah.
But I can forgive you and still decide this is not a fight that I want to fight, because it is, that's work. And the thing is, if you're with a person
Yeah.
who's hurt you one way or another, if
Yeah.
they've cheated on you or they've lied or whatever it is that has
Yeah.
broken the trust,
Yeah.
being able to rebuild trust is work.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, the person who has caused the offense, they
Yeah.
may think they want to put the work in,
Mm.
but if it's 2 years down the line,
Uh-oh. Okay, we lost her. Give me 1 second.
I still see you.
Okay, I'm
Okay,
here. All
okay.
right. All right. You're
um so yeah, down the, like 2 years down the road, they may be like, you know what, you should be over this by now.
yeah.
You can't tell me when it is that I
Yeah.
should be over it. There may be
Yeah.
certain things that kind of crop up, and it gives me it sets me back a little bit. So,
Yeah.
like, the thing is, we got to be committed. So we have to be committed to the process if you want to stay.
If you're being vulnerable
Hmm.
to your partner, because it's important, um, and the person doesn't respond the way, or let me say this: if you are being vulnerable and open, knowing that
Okay.
this could probably hurt the person,
Mm.
but because you know that you need to talk about it,
Hmm.
um, because you don't want to leave, you just don't want to leave it lingering. Like, how do you, how do you overcome that? Like,
Hmm.
the partner is like, well, listen, in order for this to continue to work, for us to build trust, I got to be open about some things that are going on internally with me,
Hmm.
and they may not be um, mushy gushy. It may not be. It's not going to be exciting for
Hmm.
neither one of us. But it has to be said with the other person. The other person responds in hurt. Like, how do you overcome that and rebuild from that?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, what has to be said, like if it's something, this is not something that, like, it's just a preference for me. Like, if this is something that has to be said in order for us to move forward,
Yeah.
then you have to say it.
Yeah.
But we're gonna have to pay attention to timing,
Okay.
to tone, right? To the
Mm-hmm.
type of statements that we use. So I mean, we don't want to make the person
Yeah.
feel attacked. We don't want them to be like, you don't want to be like, oh well, you, because
Yeah.
you could be telling me two bad things and six good things, but if you're coming at me with all the yous, boom, my
Yeah.
wall is up, and I don't want to hear what it is that you have to say,
Yeah.
right? So I think that being able to create an environment, um, where y'all are both kind of at ease and
Yeah.
calm,
Yeah.
timing, and then the words are important. But the thing is, if it has to be said, Brandy,
Yeah.
like this is gonna make or break our relationship,
Hmm.
then you got to say it, and
Yeah.
you can preface it with something like, this may be hard to hear, and it's, I just want to kind of soften the blow a little bit. This may
Yeah.
be hard for you to hear, but this is how I feel. And so
Yeah.
if these are things that you're feeling, make sure that you're communicating, because just because we feel it doesn't mean it's a fact.
Right. 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 I'm learning in therapy. One of the things that they had us do, and actually as a part of a nonprofit that I was a part of, they had us go through some training, uh, and told us to, when you speak on things, to say "I feel,"
Hmm.
because it may not be factual for the other person, or they won't feel that. However, you're feeling or how you took it is not how they meant to say the thing or do the thing and things like that. Like, that's not how it was meant. And so I'm learning that, and typically when I go in, I'm like, I feel. Like, this is where I'm at.
Mhm.
And so we talked about communication, we talked about trust and vulnerability, but then you talked, the last one was the commitment, the longevity of this covenant relationship that you make with this person. So, what does that look like?
Commitment, and I touched on it just a little bit, but we will go a little bit deeper because
Yeah.
commitment is a decision,
Mhm.
right? But it's a decision that if we're in covenant relationship that two people have made, that
Yeah.
this is where we're going, where whatever it is, whatever bumps we hit along the road, we're going to face these bumps together, right? So I'm not going to get halfway up the hill and say, um, can you hear me? It's saying that the connection is lost.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Brandy,
Uh huh. I can hear you. Are you here? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Uh oh, I think she froze. I think she froze. But I think this is yep, there she goes. We lost her. That's all right. She'll be back on. But this is very good as far as like the it was five of them: communication, trust, vulnerability, and commitment. For those of you who are watching, the what do you which one is more important for you in thinking about, like, if you're married or in a relationship, like which one is important to you? Or I know all of them make sense into, being in a committed. I can see you. It says I'm back on stage. Okay, let's see here. Let's bring her back on. Give us 1 second. So sorry for the technical difficulties. I see you're here, but it won't let me bring you on. So let's see here. Sorry, everyone. Sorry for the difficulties here today. It's okay. Um, Irina, you might have, Darina, you might have to come back in and come back out because it's showing you off video feed. It doesn't even show your video feed on for me to bring you on. Communication is very important. Yeah, especially on in the terms of what she was talking about regarding, you have to know how to communicate. That then brings about, understanding communication then brings about the trust and the vulnerability to be open about either your day. There we go. All right, here we go. Let's see. Are you there?
I'm here. I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on. The devil mad today, baby.
Okay. I was like, what is going on? This ain't never happened.
Look, how many times now? Two, three times? Yeah, you
Yeah.
get out, devil. You bye.
I'm like, what is going on? So somebody, as we were waiting for you, I was asking our guests which one is important. Sandra, I might be saying her
Shadran, I
name.
saw it say communication
Yeah,
is
she
very
was like,
important.
communication is very important to me. So
Hmm.
I was like speaking on that. So we were talking about, we left off with the commitment,
Commitment.
the covenant
Hmm.
commitment of this of being married. But what
Hmm.
it made me think too is that as you and your husband are doing premarital counseling, you can't prepare people for everything.
Nope.
So what is some of the things that you ask these couples to do to discover things that they probably that are unseen?
Hmm. So the very first thing that I would recommend to any marriage is
Yeah.
have a vision statement for your marriage, right?
Mm.
Know where you want to go, what y'all
Hmm.
want to accomplish, but at the end of the day, it's not about the things that you do, it's about the people that you become, right?
Hmm.
So if you are a person who is XYZ, you don't have to worry about doing the things, right? Because just the sheer fact that you are that person, you're going to do the things naturally. So when I was talking about commitment,
Hmm.
commitment is like, first of all, I was on my hill thing. I was doing the hill when I lost my connection. So like
Yeah.
you got to know that as you go up the hill in life, that the person's not going to get midway up the hill and be like, you know what, this load is a little too heavy. I
Yeah.
think I think I'm a bounce. right? So we need to be committed, like anchored, and that's part of the reason why being equally yoked is so important,
Yeah.
right? So not just in terms of faith, definitely in terms of faith for me,
Yeah.
but not just in terms of faith, but also in terms of values. So
Mhm.
on the front end, does this person value commitment? Does this person value family? Does this person, do they have the stick with it type of
Yeah. Yeah.
personality, not even just personality, but type of value, like core values,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, you asked me a question I wanted to answer, but I want to put a period on the commitment
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
one of the things that I found out, thankfully, on the front end of my marriage, and I
Yeah.
think me and you spoke about this a little bit in the very first meeting that we had. But my
Yeah.
grandparents were married for 52 years
Yeah.
before my grandmother passed away. And when I was in college, when I was doing my undergrad, I was given an assignment to do a life interview on somebody. And so my grandmother was my absolute favorite person in the whole wide world.
Yeah.
So I chose her. So I'm gonna interview her, for her life. And so one of the things that I asked her was, what does it take to have? I mean, y'all about to get if y'all married, y'all about to get free game because normally
Yeah.
people they got to be in our do sessions with us for them to get this. But I'm gonna give it to y'all anyway. I said, what does it take to have a marriage that can last
Yeah.
for over 50 years? And
Yeah.
so I was 18 at the time, so I knew everything.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
hello. So I asked the question and I answered. I was like, what does it take? Love? And she looked at me, she said, no. Like almost like, why would you even say that? So in case
Yeah.
y'all hadn't noticed, love was not one of the answers that I gave y'all about making,
Yeah.
making marriage work. She
Yeah.
said it's commitment. She said it's knowing that it's gonna be two people who are building a life together. And no matter what we face, we're gonna face it together.
Yeah.
So I asked her, I said, well, because I called my grandmother Mama, I called my grandfather Papa. I said, so,
Yeah.
all right, well, I'm gonna ask Papa and see what he said. She said, don't ask him, his answer gonna be the same as mine. So, commitment. This is after 50 years of marriage. For somebody to look back and tell me the thing that got us through this was we were committed.
Mhm.
That's it. 8 children. And this
Mm.
is not,
Wow.
this was back in the day where grandma she's scrubbing people toilets and coming home and still having to take care of her family and
Yeah.
what I'm saying. So life was not easy for them, but
Yeah.
commitment. We're committed to one another. We're committed to our family.
Mhm. So, what does when you say committed to the family, Lucky, what does that mean?
Sacrificial love,
Mhm.
right? So our model for marriage, of course, is Jesus and the church, right?
Yeah.
And so Jesus loved the church sacrificially. He gave himself up for her, right? Okay, so our definition, my husband and I, our definition of commitment is sacrificial love. To our detriment, no, because we want to be healthy enough
Yeah.
to be able to still be around for our family. But
Yeah.
that means that sometimes I'm gonna have to do stuff I don't want to do because it's the best thing for us or it's
Yeah.
the best thing for our family.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't be selfish and have a successful marriage. Like that's period. You can't be
Yeah.
selfish.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it's so true. Because when I think about some of the conversations that I've had with many married women and women who are getting ready to get married or just newly being married, and I end up encountering women that have they had children at a very early age.
Hmm.
Like I was a teen mom,
Hmm.
and so some of the women that I end up encountering are teen moms. So they bring this other child into this family that they're building, and they're trying to figure out, like, making decisions like, do I even want to have more kids? When I do have more kids, what does this look like? So, what is something that you think that when couples get into premarital counseling is uh, the myth that they have about marriage?
When that I'm sorry, I wasn't able to hear you really well. What?
Oh, okay. So when you're doing premarital counseling with
Hmm.
these couples, what are some of the myths that they come up with regarding
Oh, that marriage is gonna make me happy.
marriage?
Oh, I'll be whole once. You know,
Wow.
marriage marriage does not make you whole. Marriage, if anything, will expose your vulnerabilities. It will
Oh, girl.
expose your insecurities, right? So you a healthy marriage, most times, Brandy,
Go
healthy
on ahead and
marriage,
break it down, girl. Break it down. Break it down.
most times healthy marriages, or they're not like whole at inception, right? Like we have to grow to a point of being a healthy, having a healthy marriage, right?
Yeah.
Because every person comes into every relationship with baggage.
Yeah.
And if you haven't gone through sufficient premarital counseling, you may not know what you're bringing into the marriage,
Yeah.
right? I'm sure that you've heard the analogy before. People say, like, this person cut you but you bleeding on all of these other people, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
People don't always know that they're bleeding, right? But when
Yeah.
you get into a relationship, so like I'm living with this person,
Yeah.
and so now these things that they're doing working on my nerves, or I always seem like I'm working on marriage is going to expose those things.
Yeah.
And so um like just understanding that marriage is not going to make you whole. That's myth number one.
Yeah.
um Marriage is not going to make you happy. If you're unhappy going into
Yeah.
marriage, you're going to be unhappy in marriage as well.
Yeah.
um Let me see some of the other myths. There's so many. There's so many myths. Those are two of like the most common ones.
Have
um
you ever found where you were doing premarital counseling with a couple and you realize, like, I don't know if this is in y'all's best interest?
yes.
It kind of
And ultimately the decision is up to them,
yeah,
but we have had to tell people before that we recommend that they either take time apart and seek individual counseling,
yeah,
or that they just kind of pump the brakes on getting married. So I mean, it's not necessarily that you have to not get married, but right now is not the best time for y'all to get
yeah,
married. There's some things that you need to be able to unpack, because marriage is a beautiful, beautiful thing. But
yeah,
marriage is work,
yeah,
right? And if you're in a place, if people are in a place where they're already at their wits end, or they already, or I don't want to use the term unstable, but like you're barely making it with just you,
yeah,
getting into a marriage is not gonna it's not gonna do anything but further expose that,
yeah,
right? And then you're adding another layer of responsibility with that. So we have had to tell, people, hey, let's recommend that you push the date back, or let's, you know get counseling individually. Y'all need to try to work on this, that, or the other.
Have you ever met people who have had severe trauma that they're deciding to their trauma is a bond?
Hmm.
This is and they end up getting married. How did you say marriage counseling before couples that have been married like within 2 years? Um, and all have you seen that as far as a couple like there's this trauma, there's a trauma bond. They still get married and then now they're dealing with the trauma. They're now dealing with the exposure of the
My husband and I have not personally, like,
trauma.
we haven't done that, like where we're over a couple and we're mentoring or coaching them,
Yeah. Okay.
but I see trauma bonds all the time, like even within, I don't want to say within my friend group, but within
Yeah.
people who are that I associate with on a regular basis, that we definitely have seen trauma bonding. And it's something that really is so prevalent, which in those cases that would be people that we would suggest, let's you know let's get the individual counseling. But in the sense that they're already married, I mean, we're not
Yeah.
going to say, hey, y'all should divorce and spend, whatever,
Yeah.
at that point,
No, seriously. Yeah.
at that point, you're in it right now, so you're already in that covenant. Let's get the help that you need to be able to move past that, because we don't want to bring children into that type of
Yeah.
environment, right? Because
Yeah.
then we get down the road and we're like, we messed our kids up.
Yeah.
So if we're, for example, if we had a couple
Yeah.
who was married, and they had trauma bonded, part of the assessment that we do with them, it has a section that's called red flags. And
Yeah.
so some of the red flags that we see could include things like addiction,
Mhm.
to gambling or sex or pornography or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
um, Having been abused as a child, having been abused in previous relationships, like those things are covered in the assessment. And so,
Yeah.
um, if if they're already married and they've formed that trauma bond, then it just means that the work that we do is going to have to be more extensive with them. But the thing that they have to know is that there is hope, and you can absolutely overcome those things, even if
Yeah.
you have trauma bonded.
Yeah.
Um, One of the concerns is, let's say y'all trauma bonded, and then once you're free, or you've done the work and you've moved past that, let's say I don't like this person anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the connection that we had was
The
our dysfunction.
our the trauma. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Absolutely.
exactly. And
Yeah.
so we haven't seen that, but in a case like that, then I
Yeah.
mean, we're in it. I am not an advocate for divorce.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say, oh well, since y'all don't have anything in common, let's go ahead and get
Yeah.
divorced. But I'll tell you what, so you may have to rediscover that person, just as you rediscovered yourself. You'll have
Mm-hmm.
to rediscover that person, and you'll find, because I believe we talked a little bit about that. We talked about
Yeah.
the grace of God. The grace of God, I think, is going to cover that covenant, right? So
Yeah.
just because we trauma bonded, once we got free, let's
Yeah.
rediscover ourselves,
Yeah.
and let the grace of God do what the grace of God does.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. So, when do you think three? When do you think is the threshold when you start really seeing different scenarios in your marriage?
I think that's different for every couple, because some
Yeah.
couples lived together before they got married. So I mean, they
Yeah.
might have saw some stuff beforehand,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but usually, like in terms of statistics,
Yeah.
when we're looking at divorce for various reasons, for adultery,
Yeah.
for financial issues, for all these different things, that's
Yeah.
around year 8. So, like statistically, 8.2 years is where most marriages, if they're going to divorce, that's where they cut, they call it quits. So
Yeah.
obviously they've gotten to the point of wanting to divorce. So they probably begin to see it somewhere probably around,
Hmm.
3. They said
Yeah.
the first year of marriage is the hardest. That's what they say. It wasn't for me. You know,
I don't feel
our
like it
our hardest
is.
year
I'm
didn't come
so
till way after that.
yeah. I'm like, I don't feel like that's so true. Like, I feel like you're still,
Oh,
in
you still
honeymoon. You're
honeymooning,
still honeymooning. You cruising.
girl?
Everything is great. You are
Yes,
amazing. Your annoyances is so cute. And
right, exactly. That first year, that was not it. Okay, I was still way over the moon for the first year. Okay, I
yeah,
was so over the moon, Brandy, that I told you I got married young. I did not
yeah,
know better. Okay,
yeah, yeah,
thankfully my mama did. So I
yeah.
was so in love. I was ironing his underwear.
You see what
I'm
I'm
just
saying?
I'm
You see
I
what I'm
My
saying?
mama told me, she put me to the side. She said, don't start something you don't intend to finish. That was the last pair
Girl,
I ever ironed.
listen. Simple, but very much true.
Very wise, very wise. So, but yeah, the first year, that's not it. But like the thing is, the reason why I say it's different for every couple is because when does the hard season hit?
Yeah,
See, when you get into a hard season, that's when you
yeah,
really begin to see each other's deficits. That's when
yeah,
you get to see your own deficit,
yeah,
and see how we go through this season. So, like I
yeah,
said, for us, it was way after the first year.
yeah,
We're from New Orleans, so
yeah.
coming through, and we're here in Texas
Yeah.
because of Hurricane Katrina.
Oh,
So
really?
coming through Katrina, like
Yeah,
that's when you get to
yeah.
see, okay, how does he handle pressure? How does she handle stress? You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like
mm,
going through a journey of trying to have kids and can't have kids. Like
yeah,
how do they handle that?
yeah,
You know what I mean? Job
yeah,
loss, losing a parent, those kind of things. Like
yeah,
that's when you really get to see. So it's not necessarily a year marker,
yeah,
but let a hard season hit and then you'll get to see.
yeah, yeah. I have a good friend of mine, couple, her husband came here through Hurricane Katrina too.
Hmm.
And he speaks a little bit about the trauma that does come with that. And thinking about like what you're talking about, like the baggage, the things that does to the psyche of the person. But I want to go back to something because this came to mind, talking about the vulnerability.
Hmm.
So I feel like because we're two women, thinking about vulnerability in the way that culture is shifting, their one, especially with COVID. people are wanting, people are wanting you to be real, like be open.
Hmm.
But like, how does that look like on the man side? Because we ain't talked about that. Because I think for us women, we can lean into that sometimes very easily.
If the space, if the space is safe, we can. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But like, what does that look like? Like thinking about your marriage, like what did that look like for your husband?
For
Being
coming through Katrina or just being vulnerable, period.
just being vulnerable. Period.
Well, so of course, my husband had the same, like that macho thing on the front end. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, oh, like, I don't cry in front of her, or, blah, blah,
Oh
blah.
yeah. 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 Yeah.
But the thing is, and I didn't always have this right. I had to get to the point, and honest to God, I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that it was the Holy
Yeah.
Spirit that gave me this. I had to become a safe place for him
Mm,
to be able to tell me how he felt. What that looked like was when he what he shared with me, I couldn't go share with other people.
mm,
Right? There is nothing more hurtful that I believe for a man than for him to be vulnerable with somebody and then hear about what he was vulnerable about.
mm,
Right?
mm,
So
mm.
that's why trust and vulnerability are different, but I'm not vulnerable with you if I don't trust you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for him, that looked like me getting to a place that I understood that if he's trusting me with his heart, I,
Yeah.
I need to be safe for him
Mm,
to do that. Um, and to be honest with you, once he realized that, once I became that, and
yeah.
he realized that, it was a lot easier for him to be
Yeah.
able to do that. But also, men need a safe space, which is not always um, available to them. Which is
Yeah.
why I love, and we talked about this. We talked about him before, Pastor Darius Daniels.
Yeah.
One of the things that I love about him is that he's very open about men being able to share their emotions, right?
Yeah.
Men are not robots. They shouldn't be made to have to go through life robotically and not feel. Our emotions are a gift. you
Yeah.
know they should not be the thing that we make our decisions based on, but they are indicators of
Yeah.
what's going on with us. So
Yeah.
one of the spaces that he created was something called made men, and so
Yeah.
that's an area for men to be able to get together, share their vulnerabilities with each other, because
Yeah.
men need men just like women need women,
Yeah.
you know? So just like encouraging our men to seek safe spaces like that, not not as a substitute for their vulnerability with us, but in addition to it.
Yeah. Yeah. How important was that for your husband
It was
to?
huge.
Yeah.
It was huge, Brandy, because my husband, I don't want to say is the blueprint or is the prototype, because obviously he's had to be taught by the Lord how to be a husband and how
Yeah.
to be a father, because he's never met his daddy, right? So I
Mm.
mean, if he passed him on the street, he wouldn't know him. So there was
Oh
there was no
wow.
man in his life to say, "Hey, son, this is how you treat a woman. This is how what you teach to your sons." That wasn't there, and so it was very important for me to be patient with him,
Yeah.
for him to be patient with himself. But then
Yeah.
also, as he's learning, he's a conduit. So the things that he learns is not something that he just, oh, let me just stack all this up. No, as I'm learning, because he knows that he's not the only man who grew up in a house and didn't have a father there.
Yeah.
So which is a part of the reason why the mentorship piece is very important for us.
Yeah.
Is so that as he learns things, some things we learn through trial and error. And so if we know, hey, this don't work,
Yeah.
we want y'all to know on the front end, don't waste your time.
Yeah.
But if it's
Yeah.
something that works, we also want to be able to share that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. Um, to know that as I'm going through my own counseling, just for myself,
Hmm.
the importance of showing up as myself, being authentic. One of the things, like kind of like what you said earlier, is that I'm discovering in the state that I was when I did get married, the things that I was going through,
Hmm.
how that affected me today.
Yeah.
Like, and how does that affect? How did it affect me as I was making decisions? Um, for someone who has gone through so much trauma, like I remember running down that list with my therapist, and she was just like, ma'am, she was just like, when is our next session?
Oh,
Because
let me get you in tomorrow too.
yeah, like this is so much. Like, can we go back to the first? Wait a minute, let's go back to the other one. And I was just like, girl, listen. She was like, you got a whole book. I was like, girl, listen. But the importance of being self-aware. So I guess like
Mm.
how how important is that to
Huge. It's
yeah,
huge because okay, so and this is gonna seem like a trite example, but Brandy, if I'm a cat,
yeah,
right, but I think I'm a dog,
yeah,
right, that's not gonna work. Like
yeah,
I have to know who I
yeah,
am. And the
yeah,
thing that's why identity is so very important. And you're gonna
yeah,
hear me always go back to the book. That's why the Bible is so important. That's
yeah,
why having a relationship with God is so important,
yeah,
especially for people like my husband who did not know their father. Because a lot of us, like, we get our identity,
yeah,
right, from our parents, from but specifically from the father. Even if you break it down DNA levels, the XY
yeah,
chromosome, all that that comes from daddy, right?
yeah,
So when you don't know who you are, you
yeah,
behave in all kind of different manners trying to see what fits.
yeah,
Which one of these things are going to affirm me to make
yeah,
me feel like this is who I am,
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And so that's why it's so important. The self-awareness piece is very important. But the thing is, that's also where community comes in, because
Mm,
we all have blind spots, right?
yeah,
So we
absolutely.
may have some level of self-awareness, but we
Yeah,
might still be blind in another area. So
yeah,
being able to have a husband or a wife that you trust,
yeah,
right, that you can be vulnerable with,
yeah,
but also having community. Who is around your marriage? Who's speaking into your marriage?
yeah,
What are they speaking into your marriage?
yeah,
Right? And so they'll be able to see things that you can't see and be able to speak to you
mhm,
about that.
yeah. So, what are some key things like, and I think I've asked another therapist about this, but we were talking in a different context. Um, as people are getting engaged, excited about being married, what can they do today to start being self aware and asking for, hey, why do I do this? Like as a part of that community, like,
Mhm.
but like, what can they start doing to be self aware? What should they be
So
paying attention to?
first, because since we're talking about awareness and identities and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, let me correct something that you said real quick, because
Okay.
I'm not a therapist yet.
Yeah.
Right. So
Mhm.
I am in school to become a therapist, but my husband and I are certified marriage mentors and coaches.
Yep.
So that's what we do. But in terms of people like wanting to get into that space, first of all, that's that's huge. So you're already head and shoulders above a
Yeah.
lot of other people in there, because you're thinking like that. Like you're thinking, who do I need to be
Yeah.
to have a successful marriage?
Yeah.
Right. So one of those things, and you hit the nail on the head with it, is going to be the community, right?
Yeah.
But let's not neglect the importance of prayer,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So I think I told you before, my secret sauce is Jesus, and so
Yeah. Yeah.
there's I can rarely have conversations when we're talking about identity and becoming and purpose and all this kind of stuff without him.
Yeah.
So if you are a believer, then what I'm saying is for you.
Yeah.
But in terms of having the self-awareness and having people who can speak into you, and then not knowing things about yourself, ask
Yeah.
him. The Holy Spirit is our helper.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't mean that, oh, he only helps me with this. No, he the Lord doesn't leave his people ignorant. And that
Mm.
includes wanting to learn about yourself.
Yeah.
Um, so that piece, having the community, being open, being
Hmm.
honest with yourself. Like
Yeah.
nobody knows me better than I know me,
Oh my gosh. I
right?
literally was talking to somebody about this, and a good friend of mine, and we were having a conversation, and she said, "Oh, Brittany, just be honest with yourself." And I was just like, I don't know if I want to be honest with myself, because I don't want to be honest with how I feel, and because it was real, and I've never
Mhm.
in the honest truth, I've never felt that before.
Mm.
I was like, oh my gosh, like I gotta be like I think I'm open to other people to be honest with them about their stuff, but when it came to me, like I gotta be honest with me, like how
Mhm.
I feel.
Mhm.
I was just like, you want me to say out loud that this
Right.
is how
I
I
don't want to do
feel?
that.
Right. Like, like it's one thing to hear somebody else say it and to come to you and be like, this is how you act, da 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 da. That's one thing. But for
Because
you
that's
to,
about them.
yeah, exactly. That's how you feel about me. But like,
Hmm.
whatever. And it may have some truth to it,
Hmm.
but that's how you feel. That's not how I feel.
Right.
So, but then for you to look in the mirror, and I'm literally looking at a mirror. I have like a mirror right here. I'm
It's
like,
perfect.
look at like for you to look at yourself and for you to say, you know, you do this right, and for you feel this way, right?
Hmm.
Like that's how you really feel. The feeling may that feeling may go away, but right now in this state, that's how you feel.
Hmm.
And that was hard. I was like, girl, you know what I'm saying? What? She was
Yeah.
like, oh, mm-mm. You got to be honest with yourself. You also, what I'm learning is that you have to forgive yourself.
Oh, do you know how many people struggle with that?
Oh my gosh, I do. Are you kidding me? Yes, I know. I'm the very person that's just like, you want me to like, it's like I went through in 2010. I had a horrific tragedy that happened to me. But I was telling a friend of mine that I remember I was sitting in my bedroom. I had just got married, moved into my house. So it was 3, 4 years later after this incident had happened to me. And I remember listening to a message. It was on TVN or something like that on TV, and I was watching it. And at that time, I was going to work from home because I think I had a doctor's appointment. Something was going on where I was watching it during the time that I wouldn't be home.
Hmm.
But I remember just falling out on the floor, like because whatever the message was, like I felt led to pray for that for the person who did harm to me.
Mm.
But it was, I'm not gonna say it was easy,
Hmm.
but that process I was able to go through. The process that has been the hardest is me forgiving me.
Hmm. Hmm. Yep. Yep. So many people, Brandy. So many people.
I think I'm about to start crying.
And if you do this, look, you prayed before we came on here. I think the word you used was vulnerability. That I think that was the word you used in the prayer. And that's the
That
thing.
is so. It's like, how do you forgive you
Hmm.
for wrong, bad, or ugly, whatever the case may be,
Hmm.
but for you to stare at yourself and say, I forgive you.
Hmm.
Like being kind to yourself because you're busy being kind to everybody else. Why
Hmm.
aren't you kind to yourself? So, yeah, forgiving yourself. Like, I didn't through healing and therapy. I didn't realize how tough that would be. Like, you want me to look at me and forgive me?
Hmm.
And that's real. And then and you talk about, like, at the beginning you talked about the baggage. Like that's baggage
That is baggage.
that I'm bringing. But it's important. It's an important process
Hmm.
because you either have done harm to people that you don't know you did harm to.
Hmm.
You've done harm to yourself by talking, either bad to yourself or self-sabotaging.
Hmm.
And you got to forgive yourself for doing that. And you probably have to do it multiple times. You're not even doing it once. It's not a one-time
No,
occurrence.
it's not. No, it is not.
It is multiple occurrence of saying, I forgive me for acting that way, for
Hmm.
behaving, saying the things that I said to myself,
Hmm. Yep.
and being kind. So I know we're running into time. I think everything that you went over was beautiful and great, and I know this will bless somebody. And nobody, I don't think any episode I've been on, I have cried.
Brandy, let me say, and I want you to hear my heart about this because I really don't want you to. I don't want this to seem um uncaring because I
Yeah,
promise you it's coming from a good place. I promise
yeah,
you. As a matter of fact, as you sat here and you bared your soul, I
yeah,
asked the Father, tell me what would you have me to say to her?
yeah,
And the thing that I heard was, And this is not, please, okay, Brandy, listen. Please, Brandy.
But I'm begging you.
But I want you to understand this is not going to be something that you can answer right away on this
Yeah.
podcast. This is going to be something that you're going to have to sit with and
Yeah.
really layer by layer pull this thing back. Okay.
Yeah.
Is your standard of forgiveness higher than God's standard of forgiveness?
Mm, mm,
Because if he has forgiven,
yeah.
then you should like your standard can't be higher than his standard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just I want you to be able to sit with that, sis, because th- we are not in bondage to anything. That is
Yeah.
not what Jesus came for.
Yeah.
Right? Who the Son set free is free indeed. That includes the
Yeah.
prisons that we put ourselves in.
Yeah.
Right? And if you can get to the point where you can pray for somebody who has done such a horrific thing to you,
Yeah.
right? Give yourself that grace. If you can give that person that type of grace,
Yeah.
Brandy deserves that grace.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
it's like you said, it's a process. This is going to be something that you may have to do daily. And as a matter of fact, I want to encourage you to do that
Yeah.
daily. Make that something that you incorporate into your daily
Yeah.
devotion or your affirmations, whatever it is that you do to forgive yourself.
Yeah.
Let me tell
Yeah.
you something. And then I know you said time was coming up. So I'm gonna tell you this. I'm gonna tell you this. See, but you wait till the end. Like this my jam, Brett. Like you should have talked to me about this before. Oh my goodness. You wrong for this. But listen to me. And
Oh.
I'm going back to something. And so this was a quote that a person quoted. So Dr. D, who we
Yeah.
talked about before,
Yeah.
he said this before. And girl, when he said this, it blew my mind. Okay, so
Yeah.
he quoted Pastor Denise Boggs. I don't know if you've heard of her with Living
Uh-uh.
Waters Ministry.
Uh-uh.
Um, this lady asked him something one day. She wanted him to envision Jesus, like
Yeah.
the Jesus holding out his hand. You can see the blood, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And she said, is for whatever that person did that hurt you, and in your case is going to be you to forgive yourself, is the blood of Jesus sufficient
Mm.
to cover that? Right?
Mm. Yeah.
You're not going to get the time back for
Yeah.
the time that you've spent crying, the time you spent worrying, all that kind of stuff. The blood
Yeah.
of Jesus is complete and sufficient
Yeah.
to cover that thing, to wash it
Yeah.
away. And we
Yeah.
just got to receive that. I know I messed the quote up a little bit, but you got the gist of it. Basically, the
Yeah.
blood of Jesus is that's what's got to make it right.
Yeah.
And so we can forgive other people all day long. Oh, the
Yeah.
blood of Jesus is sufficient for them. It's
Yeah.
sufficient for Brandy too.
Yeah.
We've
Yeah.
all done something
Yeah.
that still haunts us to this day. I know
Yeah.
I have. I've done things that have haunted me to this day. But like you said, forgiveness is something that sometimes daily we have to do it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I choose to forgive every single day.
Yeah. Absolutely. I choose to forgive every single day. Yeah.
It's a choice.
Yeah. It's a decision
Hmm.
for sure. Oh my gosh. I was not supposed to come on here doing all of this. Oh my gosh.
It's all good.
Well,
Let me
that's why
ask you
it's
this though:
called
how you
bold.
feel?
All right. Exactly. That's why it's called bold conversations, because
Oh,
these things are going to come up. And being a part of bold for me was being vulnerable and encountering women who were open up their lives to me.
hmm,
That that's so bold,
yeah, it
which
is.
is why I called this bold conversations, because these are bold topics. These are things that probably will make me cry. I'll be like, oh my gosh, like what am I doing with my life? But for another woman to see that it's okay for you to cry, it's okay for you to be vulnerable, it's okay for you to be open, because
Hmm.
more people need to see that. They need to see the human side of us, to
Hmm.
see us feel, and to also see us process the feelings. So
And
thank you
to
for
see the
taking.
strength, Brandy, because people with an immature definition of
Yeah.
vulnerability will look at it as weakness. It
Yeah.
takes strength
Hmm.
to be vulnerable with somebody.
Oh my gosh, so much.
It takes strength. So thank
So
you
much.
for your strength and for your vulnerability and for doing this thing, for creating this space, because women need this.
Yeah.
Women need this space.
Yeah. That it's okay. It's okay. And I'm learning, and I know we're going over, and I see we still have people on, so thank y'all for staying with us. But I'm learning through vulnerability that there may be, you may get hurt,
Yep.
you may, but talking about that sacrificial love, you're willing to make that sacrifice for it doesn't even matter. And so you're vulnerable, you're open, and you don't even know how this person is going to receive it. They may not receive it well.
They may
They
not.
may be like, it's a no for me, or they may be like, okay, this is major. Like, let's work through this. Let's talk through this. Let's figure all this stuff out. You don't know.
You don't.
And so that's what I'm learning through, being open. I'm being more expressive and talkative and saying how I feel. And that hasn't always been me, living with a dad who was Hispanic, single parent, like defense all the way through and
I don't
through.
have time for emotions. I'm trying to put food on the table.
That part, that, all of that. And then
Mhm.
I was in a single parent. So that's I walked right into that one. Like, was raised by one and then got myself into one, and then I was just like, I just took what I learned and was like, okay, we applying it to this. So
Right.
I can find myself very easily leaning into that
Mhm.
because of an upbringing of mine and then what I went through. But thank you so much for this. This was so good. I am just so excited. So tell the people about your journal. You said something about a journal that you have. How can people access it? Is there a website
Yeah,
or anything
it's
like that?
available. It's available on Amazon. And like, just to piggyback on what you said just a minute ago.
Okay.
So with the journal, um, it's called Lineage and Legacy. Y'all can see it,
Okay.
right across, right on top of my head. It's called Lineage and Legacy. And so the lineage part of it is for us to be able to recount family history in certain areas. So in faith, in family values, in function, like what did our people do?
Yeah.
This the deluxe version, the one that you see with the multicolors, also has something called pharmacy. So a lot of us, we around here on antibiotics and all this different stuff. When grandmama and them, they knew you go get these herbs, you put this together, and this will take care of this, that, or the other. So that's what that section is for.
Yeah.
But then the legacy portion is where we cast vision for our future generations
Yeah.
in those same areas. So that's the heart behind that. But one of the things that I want to say about the journal in relation to what you just shared about your dad, and then how you kind of walked into the same thing, is that it's not just about writing down the things that our family did that was great. Like, let's be honest with our future generations. We did this and this wasn't it,
Yeah.
right? So let's try to avoid the things that end us up in those kind of situations. So it's
Yeah.
about passing down information.
Yeah.
A wise man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, and that's
Yeah.
not always money. You know,
Mm.
sometimes that's wisdom.
Hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you
You
so
are welcome.
much.
Brandy, I'm sorry, girl. Let me tell you, if Linda watches this, she gonna be mad at me just for that minute right there. 'Cause she'll be like, she didn't even tell them how to find the journal. It's on Amazon. Okay, y'all can just put in Lineage and Legacy, Daria Morris, or if I have access to the
Yeah.
chat, I'll give you the link to the
Okay.
thing. Um,
Yes, I
my
would love
husband and I we're very much word of mouth people.
that.
So most of the couples that we've helped, we typically don't market. We just we get word of mouth. People come to
Yeah.
us and they're like, "Hey, can you help us with this?" And that's how we roll with it.
Yeah.
But if the people who just want to kind of follow along or be able to get in touch with us, we have a YouTube channel, Morris Family Studio,
Okay.
because I'm also a gardener. So
Oh,
that's the
wow.
long term goal, is for us to have weekend retreats for couples where we incorporate gardening and family, all that kind of stuff, life lessons from
Yeah.
the garden. But
Yeah.
we're not there yet. But they can follow us on YouTube, Morris Family Studio. I'm on Instagram, Tootie_Morris. So all the things.
Amazing. Thank you so much. This was so great. Thank you all who stayed on, who sat in, listened. Um, I'm somebody said, "Way to go, ladies! Great conversation. Thank you for your transparency." Oh,
That's my
thank you
friend.
so much. Oh my gosh, thank you so
Thank you
much.
so.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Y'all will see me here back next week. I end up having a back to back at 6:30 Central Standard Time. I'll have Ashley Spriggs on. She is the owner of a nonprofit called I Am Her. It is being planted right now in middle schools here in the DFW area where she's helping young girls with insecurities. And that's going to be our topic. So make sure that you join us for that. Thank y'all so much for who joined us, and thank you for staying on for a couple of more minutes. We appreciate it, and I will see y'all next Wednesday. Thank y'all so much.
Bye, everybody.